On Rosh Hashanah, I spent significant time, which probably every rabbi in the world, certainly diaspora, did, which is focusing on the utter tragedy, devastation, anti-Semitism, and threats to our people, and around the issue of who has our back and how we have to work on that issue around who has our back or I have your back. And really emphasized in that sermon, drasha, the struggles we're facing. I mean, we're still facing them, and you're still going to hear more of it here in this one too. But I want to focus on this piece, on an aspect of October 7th, this Yom Kippur, which isn't only about the devastation, which is beyond words, but also about the heroism. Less reported, although reported, but less known, is the heroes that acted on October 7th, which I think has much to teach us or really recapture for us about what the Jewish definition is of a hero. So follow me here. If I look at all the Torah and I say, who is the most heroic and focused on the most of all, willingness to stand up and be kind of a Superman, it's Moses, it's Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe is willing to go speak truth to power when things are difficult, we're enslaved. And you know his story, like he's not so psyched about it, doesn't think he's worthy of it. You know, he says, they're not going to listen to me. You know, this is a problem with the Jewish people for millennia. Okay, they're not going to listen to me. They're not going to do what I say. They're going to kvetch all the time. They're difficult for him. But one of the most profound pieces, and I hope this is like one, if you walk around one Torah, this Yom Kippur, okay, is you got to ask yourself, and maybe you've already asked this question before, but if you haven't, I hope you'll lift it up. How can it be that Moshe Rabbeinu was given one job to do at the burning bush? You know the story? He says to Moshe, go to Pharaoh and tell him, let my people go so that they may serve me. Shlach ami v'avduni. Go to him. But the key phrase he says to him is, go to him and tell him. You must tell Pharaoh personally, to his face, let my people go. And what's this is why the Torah, I love the Torah, okay? Is because what is the problem Moshe has the biggest challenge with? He's got kaved lashon and kaved peh. He's got a double challenge going on in his mouth. And I love that people already know it. So it's something like, the scholars say it's like stuttering or a lisp, or it's some kind of problem with speaking, or he just gets nervous when he speaks, like he stuttered. But how can it be that God tells him the one thing you have to do, one job, the most important job, and he basically doesn't have the skills for it? He says, I'm not equipped. Moshe had other qualities. He could handle leadership. He had courage. There's no question about that. He also had a temper, all right? But he had a talking problem. So what does God say? No problem. Still, you go up to Pharaoh, you try, but your brother Aaron, HaKohen, he speaks very well. He'll speak when you can't. And what does that teach us about great heroes in the Torah? Is it's not about being able to do it all. It's not, be very skeptical if someone says to you, I can solve all the problems alone, me, no implications. Even Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't solve all the problems alone. He needed his brother Aaron and sister Miriam. He couldn't do it alone. The great Jewish heroes know their strengths and know where they need help. But they don't shy away when it gets tough to doing the courageous thing, even if they aren't the most skilled. Now let's come back to October 7th. I'm just going to give you a little splash of a couple. I'm going to go one story deep. A splash. And for those of you who really follow Israeli news carefully, maybe you know these stories. This one is like, in Israel, they use it as a cultural, like, it's like a meme. It's amazing how Israelis can make fun of this. It's a source of humor because she was so out of this world. Her name was Rachel from Ofakim. Ofakim, if you don't know in Israel, is kind of like New Jersey, okay? It's not a place everyone wants to be from Ofakim. But Ofakim, oh my Jews, that's it. They just left the shul. No, I'm kidding. You were from New Jersey. You're from North Carolina. All right. She's down there by the Gaza envelope, in her 60s. She's Persian Jewish, but like Iranian. But imagine like a Yiddish mama, traditional Jewish mother, in her 60s, Iranian version, okay? She's with her husband in his 60s also, on October 7th. Terrace, they're just having, it's 6:30 in the morning. They're having like breakfast before Simchat Torah. The terrorists come into her house. What does she do? I mean, they're like with guns. I mean, they're ready. She says, this is true. You should Google it after the holiday. You must be hungry. Can I feed you something? And the terrorist said, okay. For 15 hours, she kept them in the house, feeding them, giving them drink, giving them places to rest on the couch and sleep. During all that time, she saw through the windows her son Evyatar was on the police force. Because if you know the story, the Israeli army and police were not there very quick. It took time. But by the time she saw through the window while they were facing that he was there, she would give the food platters to people, like things. And she also, by the way, she only knew a little bit of Arabic, though, and we'll learn about this more soon later today. Farsi is not the same as Arabic. She knows Farsi and Hebrew, but she knew some Arabic, enough to have conversation. So as she would give a platter, she'd use like a hand signal, something like this, telling the police and army where the terrorists were. All of a sudden, when they took like a nap or rest, they all came in, and the husband and wife survived. And the son came in, this incredible moment, it's a picture of it, hugging his mother because of her bravery. She's called Rachel from Ofakim. This is like the story, an incredible like Israeli innovation, but it was heroic. She gave her gift, incredibly. Is there fortune and luck in there? Yes. But did she step back? No. She was courageous. That's just one. There are other stories. If you have, this one is being made into a movie. If you know the show Fauda, I assume maybe you've seen Fauda. Those guys, Lior Raz and Ischarav, are making this into a movie. A guy, Amir T-Bone, in Haaretz journalist, was down also in the Gaza envelope, calls his father in Tel Aviv a general, retired general, in his 60s. Who he says, Abba, I'm down, terrorists, they don't even know. He gets in his own car with his wife, and they are just driving south. There's a roadblock, the garment had eventually, they blew right past it, typical Israeli, right through it, right through it. On the way, they got soldiers, they got other people, they dropped off the wife. The grandfather goes all the way with a pistol down to the kibbutz. He goes to the house. He knocks on the window. He sees his son and grandchildren huddling. They're told him, stay away, don't answer. And he says, Sabapo, Sabakan. He says, grandfather's here. I'm here. Gives me chills telling the story. And they look up, and his grandfather, literally like Superman, saved his own family. Now, he will tell you, I wish I could save more people. He couldn't save everyone. But he did what he could in a time of crisis. But here's the story I want to actually, go more in depth, because this one I think is, when I heard it, it's underreported and it gives me chills. His name is Rami Davidian, and it's, okay. So Rami Davidian, he's a simple, also in his 60s, farmer from a town called Patish, which is again, on the envelope, it's just these little small communities. He gets up, Simchat Torah morning, he gets up early to go to shul. Not particularly religious, but it's Simchat Torah, he's going to celebrate in the community. He's on his way, he gets a call. A friend, and this is, Israel's very small, everybody kind of knows each other in one degree of connection, says, there's something going on down by the Nova Festival, my daughter is screaming to us. They didn't understand yet what was going on. So we'll go get her. So he gets in his car, And he starts driving. And if you know WhatsApp, some of us are more WhatsApp, you actually can send a pin that tells you exactly where you are. Like it's like an Uber thing, you can say exactly. So he takes it, and he goes, and then he discovers everything. And he ends up going back, it's reported, up to 700 people he went back and forth, unarmed, in his car, just going and taking out amidst terrorists and chaos. But the one story that is like the most incredible is it's getting later, and he gets a frantic call. Now people are telling, like Israelis are discovering that he has this ability to do that, so they're getting connected quickly through WhatsApp. He's getting all these WhatsApps. And one mother says, my daughter's there. He gets in with the daughter. But then over time, also the internet started not working well. It was overwhelmed. It was also in the middle of the desert. It's a very remote area. So he catches with this one young woman. She's like 18, 19 years old, and she's terrified, obviously. And she's hiding in a wadi, which is, for those who've been to Israel know, it's a riverbed with no water in it, okay? She's kind of hiding. It's not really hiding, okay? There's trees, but she's trying to, and she's saying, they're coming for me. I see the terrorists. They're going to be close. He's saying, calm down. I'll find you. So send me your pin. She's sending but there's some internet problems. So he's not getting the exact location. He's saying, well, I know I'm close because I had the prior pin. He said, you know what I'll do? We're going to do a game of hot and cold. Unbelievable. Cham and kar. He said, I'm going to honk my horn. And every time I honk it, all you do is text cham or kar, hot or cold. That's it. That's all I can go through. So he honk, kar. He goes the other way, cham. By the time he goes, he finds her. Right there, she's at a tree being held by 6 Hamas terrorists. He is sure they are going to attack her. Rami is Moroccan Israeli. He grew up in a house speaking Arabic. So he's unarmed. He thinks on his feet. He says, I'm not going to do it. Abu Rami. Abu Rami is the little Arabic, I know. I'm the son of Rami. Okay, so they look at him, and he has the accent that's Moroccan authentic. They look at him like, okay. He says, you should go. The IDF is coming, which was a lie. The IDF is coming. Go, run, flee back to Gaza. I'll take her in my car, and I'll take her as a hostage. They look at him. They drop her, and they start to run. He takes her into his car and frees her and brings her back to the kibbutz. When you hear him afterwards interviewed, he's been interviewed on Israeli TV, but again, a lot of these stories have been, obviously, they're just not as prominent because of the overwhelming tragedy, and we're still in war. I mean, there's not to mention the soldiers, okay, on the front line and others. But these are regular people who are not some kind of, they're not on the front lines or with weapons, but they used the gifts that they had to do what they could, just like Moshe. They said, I'm not going to sit back. I'm going to go forward. Now, look, here's one of the truths of this time, which is particularly painful, I think probably for all of us, but I felt it painfully, and I've heard it from you, is that, look, this situation is terrible, but how much influence can we have over there, right? I mean, on behalf of the shul, I visited and I brought stuff on behalf of the congregation. It was very meaningful. We donated things. But how much influence? Yeah, we can give tzedakah, which is amazing. We can try to affect the political dynamic, but, even the current administration can't affect all the political dynamic, right? It's very hard. Like, what's going on over there is its own entity. How much can we influence that? What can we do? So one of the questions is, what can we do here? What can we do here in these challenging times? And what I'm going to argue is we got to channel some of this Jewish heroism. Jewish heroism means you have to solve all the problems here in our Jewish community. But everybody, not just the rabbis, not just the board president, everybody can do something. Because you know what, and this is what Rabbi and Jen and I were talking about, and it breaks my heart to say this, and I hope that some of you will lovingly disagree with me after and send me an email, all right? But for the first 25 years of being a rabbi, being Jewish basically was cool. I mean, I remember when Madonna, 20 years ago, studied Kabbalah. Do you guys remember that? The Rolling Stones apparently were leading some rabbi, Michael Jackson, may he rest in peace, okay? He was hanging out with a rabbi and learning biblical stuff too. there was a time where the first thing associated with Jewish life was something creative, interesting, cool. I am worried that the first thing that most people think about Judaism or Jews today is this war. Not because necessarily people are anti-Semitic, by the way, but it overwhelms everything else. The first thing I have when I interact with people, it'll act to me, it's not about Beth Meyer and how's the shul doing. It's the war. Or on the other hand, it's anti-Semitism. And the problem there is if that's what all of the non-Jewish world associates with the Jewish people is the war, the hostages, terror, and anti-Semitism, then that's not all of who we are. That's a piece, unfortunately, of what we're facing. So what does that mean? What it means is that we all have a job now, a heroic job, that's not going to be easy, that I really tap into some of our Southern Jewish ancestors here for, when you're a smaller minority and you have to go out and see yourself as an ambassador. That my job, in my small way, is to go and show the world that Judaism is, yes, it includes the war and anti-Semitism. Believe me, it does. It is overwhelming, legitimately. But it's more than that. That the Jewish community is a community like any other community that loves and prays and helps. So what does that mean? It could be heroic this year to go teach about Jewish holidays in a public school classroom. I know a lot of these parents go and talk about Hanukkah in prior years, and it's been amazing. I mean, I don't want to make predictions, but is it possible that someone's going to find that troubling or, I don't know, or identify as provocative? It's possible. And here's the question. Should the parents say, well, look, I don't want to get involved? Because Hanukkah, by the way, is about a war for the land, okay? So does that mean that someone's going to come up and maybe protest my kindergarten explanation of the Hanukkah event? Can you see the possibility of that happening? So what I'm going to you and saying, guys, we're going to have to pull in our inner Rami Davidian here and our inner Moshe. Say, no. We want to share with you our holiday, not for the sake of convincing the whole planet about, the righteousness of our cause, but that we are a people with a holidays and tradition. And this is who we are. We need to do that out in many different spaces. We need to do that together. I'm so proud of how we've supported Western North Carolina and Hurricane Helene, but it is important that we do that as part of the Jewish community. Some say, anti-Semitic leaning, that our community is so insular, we only care about ourselves. Not true. But it's important that we go forward and say those things out and do them to the world. It's going to be more important than ever that in your conversations, as Rabbi Jenny has noted, when there's someone that you should, I want to say a special mitzvah this year, invite over to your house for a Shabbat dinner. Invite people over to your house for Hanukkah. Invite them over to your home for Passover Seder, especially people who don't know about our tradition. Not for the sake of getting a political conversation. That's not the point. Just to see what our tradition is like. It's going to be a one-by-one opportunity, not to mention what Rabbi Jenny mentioned in Rosh Hashanah, with those people who are posting, engaging people to say, see me, because this could be times I am bullish on the Jewish people in the long term, like the S&P 500, I'm bullish. But in the short term, there are headwinds. And they can only be challenged if all of us see ourselves as emissaries, as shlichim, going out and seeing what thing can we do to show people what our Jewish people and Jewish community is about and the greatness and beauty of our tradition. Not to convince, not to convert, just to see us, though, as human beings, not as pictures on a screen or about hostages or attacks or wars, but about real people with real lives, real Americans who really love this country and want to be respected and kept and honored. It is going to be upon us to go forward in a heroic way. And then the other piece, internally too. Our community, there's not one person in this community who is not struggling right now in this current time. And the reaction to that struggle, on the one hand, is to reach out and be an emissary, even heroically when it's not easy, but it's also to double down within. This is the time, our community, as grateful as we are for the tzedakah, incredible tzedakah, in a time of so many challenges, including Hurricane Helene, so many places to give one's charitable, we've done so well in our shul. We're so proud to support our community. But it's not just about that. It is also about your time and your energies. This is a time where you could say, you know what, I'm going to show up at Minyan, even on Zoom, to help support someone saying Kaddish or to pray on my own, because this is what I will do to build the strength of my community. I will get involved in the Chesed committee and caring and helping someone else who is in need or sick or needs a Shiva Mini needs support. A time to take a class. This is the time, in reaction to all that, to double down on one's Jewishness and to say, how can I strengthen myself and my community? So it needs to be external ambassadors, yes, heroically, but internal too. And this I will close, because this is Jewish heroism. Rami Davidian and Rachel from Ofakim, and by the way, Rachel Poland Goldberg, unbelievable, Goldberg Poland, the mother of Hirsch Goldberg Poland, the way she and her father, Jonathan spoke. I mean, that's heroic in their ability to articulate to the world their pain and suffering of having a hostage for a child who later sadly was murdered. It's incredible. But what it says is, and none of us has to do it alone, and the rabbis can't do it alone, and even Moshe couldn't do it alone. Each of us can do just our small part. And that brings me to the last story, which I think really, I love this Torah story. It's a little lesser known, but it's also in the book of Exodus. When Moshe was getting older, and he was having, getting older, he lost his strength. We had one particular battle came Amalek, the tribe of Amalek came. And those who know Amalek, that's considered like the worst enemy of Israel for time immemorial. They come and attack us. And God says to Moshe, here's what the plan. You're going to go and you're going to lift up your arms. And when you lift up your arms, I will take my strength through you and we will defeat Amalek. And how we'll do that is Joshua will go out into the field and he'll be down there and you will hold up your arms. With that and Joshua, we will win. So Moshe goes up and starts to go like this. It's in the book of Exodus. And he feels too tired. He can barely stand. He can barely hold up his arms. So he said, what are we going to do? So Aaron, his brother, Aaron, and another leader named Hor, they said, we have an idea. They took Moshe and put him up on a high hilltop so he could oversee everything. And they took a big boulder and they had him sit on it so he could sit and be seated, not have to stand. And they stood on either side of him and they held up his arms. And they say, while we hold up your arms, the Jewish people will not be defeated. And Moshe let them hold his arms, and Joshua fought below, and we defeated Amalek. And that's the model here. To be a Jewish hero does not mean you have to be the one Ramatkal, the head of the Israeli army or the Mossad, or here head of CSS, or even president of the board. But each of us can hold each other's arms up. Each of us can go out into the world and show the world the beauty of our Jewish community, even when things are hard. That is being heroic. And I encourage us, I urge us in this year to come, on this Yom Kippur, be a Jewish hero, one that takes whatever gifts you have, even small, and let that be your gift to make the world better. Gamar Chatima Tova, a good, sweet ceiling in the book of life.